Now in B8, just a reminder, we have identified that for business to exist, there has to be inputs, a process, and an output. But paragraph B8 indicates to us that there might be scenarios where there is no output. But then we need to determine if the process is substantive. Therefore, if the process is substantive, then yes, this might still be a business. Okay, guys, therefore we will have to identify in a scenario if there is any outputs. Okay, now B12 indicates to us, remember, let's just recap. We've identified that if there is no outputs, we need to look at the process, if the process is substantive. But there might be scenarios where there is outputs. Therefore, we need to ask the question when we look at a scenario, is there any outputs at acquisition date? If our answer is no, we need to look at B12B to determine if the process is substantive. Remember, if the process is substantive, then yes, this will be a business. If we ask the question that is there any outputs at acquisition date, and our answer is yes, there is outputs at acquisition date, we need to refer to B12C to identify if the process is substantive, right? And guys, the process can be substantive, yes or no. If it is yes, it's a business. If no, it's not a business. Okay, now when we look at B12B, it indicates to us if a set of activities and assets does not have output at acquisition date, an acquired process or group of processes shall be considered substantive only if A, it is critical to the ability to develop or convert an acquired input or inputs into outputs. Therefore, our keyword here, it should be critical, very, very important. And the inputs acquired include both an organized workforce that has the skills, knowledge, or experience to perform the process, and the inputs that the organized workforce could develop or convert into outputs. Now, those inputs, guys, look at this. They indicate to us those inputs that can be converted can include intellectual property that could be used to develop a good or service, other economic resources that could be developed to create, rights to obtain access to necessary materials. And then they provide us with an example, but let's just quickly recap. The assets and the activities does not have an output at acquisition date, and it can only be substantive if we are able to identify that that process is critical to be able to generate output, and the inputs include a workforce that will be able to use the inputs to generate outputs. And the inputs can then be intellectual property, economic resources, and rights. Okay, now B12C. If a set of activities and assets has outputs at acquisition date, an acquired process shall be considered substantive if, when applied to an acquired input or inputs, it, 1, is critical to the ability to continue producing. Why continue? Because there is currently outputs. And the inputs acquired include organized workforce with necessary skills, knowledge, experience to perform. Therefore, keyword, guys, critical and include our organized workforce. Then there's an or. If we look at B, sorry guys, I'm a bit slow here. Okay, B. significantly contributes to the ability to continue producing the outputs, because at acquisition there is outputs, and is considered unique or scarce, or cannot be replaced without significant cost, effort, or delay in the ability. Therefore, our keywords here, guys, will be that it is unique or scarce and cannot be replaced without significant costs and effort. B12D. Now, this is an important one, and this might be a catch in the scenario. Let's just quickly recap. What have we identified? That for a business to exist, there has to be input, process, output. Right. We've identified if there is no output, or there might be output at acquisition date, we need to identify if the process is substantive. If yes, the process is substantive, this can still be recognized as a business. Now, B12D, we need to focus on contracts being acquired. Therefore, if a contract is acquired and our answer is yes, we need to identify if there is an organized workforce as per the contract. This is important, guys. Is there an organized workforce? If our answer is yes, we need to ask, will it be difficult to replace the organized workforce? If our answer is yes, then that contract can be a substantive process. Now, if we've asked the question, is there an organized workforce in the contract? And our answer is no, then this is not a substantive process, and the contract will be seen as an input. Right, therefore your key word, if you identify that there is a contract purchased, you need to think, is there an organized workforce in the contract? If yes, will it be difficult to replace the workforce? If yes, then this is a substantive process. If no, not difficult, guys, then this can still be not substantive and an input. Okay, now let's read through section A. An acquired contract is an input and not a substantive process. Nevertheless, guys, if the acquired contract, for example, is a contract for outsourced property management or outsourced asset management that may give access to an organized workforce, look at the keyword, organized workforce, and entity shall assess whether an organized workforce accessed through such a contract performs substantive process that the entity controls, and this has acquired. Factors to consider in making the assessment include the duration of the contract and the renewal terms. B. Difficulties in replacing the acquired workforce may indicate that the acquired workforce performs a process that is critical, keyword guys, critical, very important in terms of the ability to create outputs. Now C, look at this. A process or group of processes is not critical if it is minor within the context of all of the processes. And this is very important as well. Right, guys, now we have worked through the important paragraphs. Now I want you to refer to our flow diagram in our notes. Right, this flow diagram is there to assist you to determine if the acquired assets and liabilities meet the definition of a business. Now remember, if it meets the definition of a business, we need to apply IFRS 3. If not, we need to apply our assets standard. Now our first question that we need to ask is, do you want to apply the concentration test? Remember the concentration test, they can choose yes or no. Now the concentration test, when you look at the right side of your screen, this will be when all of the fair value of our gross assets purchased is concentrated due to a single identifiable asset or groups of identifiable similar assets. Remember your keyword, guys, here is the identifiable. And if you refer to 7B, C, D, E, and F, this will provide you with a guideline on how to determine if this is single identifiable assets or a group. Right. Now, we have looked at question 1. If your answer is yes, you have met the criteria for the concentration test, yes, then you know that when you look at this, it is not a business and you need to apply your asset standards. Right. If the answer is no, either the concentration test is not met or the purchaser does not want to apply the concentration test, we need to apply question number 2. Do the activities and assets have outputs at acquisition date? Remember, this will be in terms of B8. Remember, we've identified that for business to exist, there has to be inputs, processes, and outputs. Okay, guys, I just want to include contribute to, right, and the ability. Okay, now B8 indicates to us that there might not be an output at acquisition date. Then we need to determine if the process is substantive. Right. Now, if we look at the question, do the activities and assets have outputs at acquisition date? And our answer is no. We need to apply B12B. Is the process critical to the ability to develop or convert the inputs into outputs? Our keyword, will that process be critical? If our answer is no on your left side, then you know that this is not a business. If our answer is yes, okay guys, I just want to include here that this is in terms of paragraph A and then paragraph B. If our answer is yes, do the inputs include, focus guys, do the inputs include skilled, knowledgeable, experienced, organized workforce to perform, and other inputs the workforce could develop or convert into outputs? Is there other inputs as well? Therefore, is there employees and is there any other inputs? A workforce. If your answer is no, this is not a business. If the answer is yes, this will be a business, and we may recognize IFRS 3 business combination. Okay, now let's get back to question number 2. Do the activities and assets have outputs at acquisition date? Our answer is yes. Refer to B12C. This is paragraph A, bottom one, paragraph B. Is the processes critical when applied to the inputs and continue producing outputs? Therefore, again, keyword, is it critical? And is there skilled, knowledgeable, or experienced organized workforce to perform the processes? Therefore, again, look at the important words here, guys. The workforce. If our answer is yes, then this is a business. If our answer is no, does the process significantly contribute to the ability to continue producing the output and is considered unique and scarce? If your answer is yes, you know that this is a business, and if your answer is no, this is not a business.